Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's QuickFile training session on our utilities drawer. My name is Brett Roberts. I will be your trainer for this morning's training session. I want to direct your attention over to the right-hand side of your screen where you should see your dashboard. On your dashboard, there's a place for you to ask questions, so please feel free to ask any questions at any time. My associate Amy is monitoring those questions, and we'll answer them right away. We're going to go ahead and start off with our QuickFile system today in our utilities drawer. The reason that we start off in the utilities drawer is because we need to get QuickFile configured so that it works properly for you when you're entering in clients and policies and things of that nature. So that's why we go through this part of the training first. So we're going to go ahead and open up our utilities drawer. When we open up the utilities drawer, you can see that we are presented in our pop-up boxes. Okay, that's the first tab that we have here. Next, we have our defaults, passwords, client maintenance, agency info, system, and real-time setup. Okay, if you don't see the real-time setup tab, don't worry. This just means that you didn't sign up for our quick download program that actually downloads policies directly into your agency management system with participating carriers. So if you don't see that, it's not a big deal. It just means that you haven't signed up for that part of the program. Up along the top, let's give you kind of an overview of what you can see at the top on the toolbar. We do have help, okay, and we have a main menu which takes us back to the file drawers. We do have add entry. Add entry will allow you to add any entries into these items right here. Pop-up boxes actually refer to your menu choices. And so if I click on add entry, it'll bring up this little box down here at the bottom. Okay. If I want to edit an entry, that will actually select this person. Whoever is selected, it'll allow me to edit that information. And the same goes for any of these additional items here. Delete entry. We can delete entries from QuickFile. Once you delete them, they are gone permanently, so I want to caution you about that. Make sure that if you are going to delete something, that's what you want to do. Okay? Otherwise, you can't get it back without re-entering that information, and the same goes throughout the entire program. Once it's gone, we can't get it back. Okay? And then finally, reset list. If any one of you, if you're using with our desktop version, okay, you should see some sample data in here. At any time you can go through and reset the list and re-enter the people that apply to your agency. And then next we have commissions. Commissions will refer to in the agent CSR's producers and also for the insurance companies. Okay, and we'll talk about commissions here in just a second. The agent CSR producer, this is where you're going to enter in all the people in your office that have access to QuickFile or that are going to be using QuickFile or that sell business for you. Okay. As you can see, I have a list of producers here, and basically to add anybody in here, we just type this entry. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and put in Sam, and we're going to add him to the list. You'll notice that when I add Sam to the list, he is listed alphabetically so I can find him very quickly and very easily. Next, if I need to set up commissions for my agents or producers, I simply either double-click on a name, or I can go up here to the very top and select commissions in a chart. If I select in a chart, it opens up the chart for me to set up commissions for my client or for my agents. All right. I'm going to go ahead and return to pop-up boxes. If I select commissions for Joe, let's say I want to set up commissions for Joe. If I double-click on his name, it's still going to bring me to the same chart. All right. Now, when setting up commissions for your producers or your CSRs or agents, okay, it's really important that you understand how we do this. All right. First of all, you can only set up commissions one of three ways. All right. The first way that we can set up commissions is based on a percentage of premium, which is exactly the same way that your carriers pay you. Your carriers pay you based on a percentage of premium. Okay? If this is the method that you're going to use, then you must use only this method to set up this particular agent. All right? The other common way, or the more common way for people to pay commissions out to their producers is by giving them a percentage of the new commission or the renewal commission. Okay? Which means that you're going to split the agency's commissions between you and the producer. Okay? And then finally, the other way that you can set it up is based on a flat amount. You might have in your office a policy where you just pay them, say $50 a policy sold or $100 a policy sold or whatever that might be, but that's what you're going to pay them, okay, which is a flat amount. Okay. The most common way is usually a percentage of new or renewal. Okay. So if I'm going to, if I'm going to set up commissions for Sam, I would simply double-click on Sam's name and open up this box. Okay. Or I can click on Edit, and that would bring me to the same screen. Now, in Sam's case, we're going to go ahead and set up commissions for him based on new and renewal. And let's say that he's going to get 50%. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change this to 50. I highlight the zeros, and I change it to 50. Now, I need to tab to the next field. All right? If you hit Enter, it'll save the information and take you back to the chart behind it. Okay? So we need to use Tab. And let's say on renewals we're going to pay him 50% also. Okay? Now, when we're done, we can click Enter. All right? And that would save that. For those of you who are in fee states where you are allowed to charge an agency fee, you can pay your producers a percentage of the agency fee in QuickFile. We'll calculate that out. Okay? And you would just simply enter in that percentage. All right? Or the same thing with optional amounts, such as Nation Safe Drivers or a motor club or something like that. Once we're done, we simply click OK. The chart automatically gets updated, and you can see now that we're paying him 50% new, 50% renewal. Okay? If I needed to edit this at any time, I could simply double-click and open it back up. Okay? In tomorrow's training session, we will show you where you can actually list the producers on the policy screen so that you can actually reconcile them later on. All right, moving along, let's go ahead and return back to our pop-up boxes. When we do that, we're going to talk next. We're going to talk next about our sources. Okay, and this is just how you guys track business coming through the door. All right. For example, if I want to track maybe I did a flyer or I did an email campaign, or how did my client come through the door? We can enter as many sources here as we want. There's no limit on the number of sources that you can store here, but we can enter as many as you need. Okay. Next, we have our agency information. Okay, and you should have in your defaults in QuickFile, you should have like 1 South Main Street and 611 North Washington. You can simply go up to the very top and click on Reset List. When you do that, what's going to end up happening is it's going to say, are you sure you want to erase the agency list? If you say yes, then this list behind you gets closed or gets cleared out. Okay, and it just takes you back to the screen. Now, if I wanted to, I can change this. Okay, and I can put the address. Okay, and I can add it to my list. Now, when I do that, then QuickFile will know that any of your clients are attached to this particular agency. Now, keep in mind that you can only have 25 characters in the agency's name. Okay, so just so you can see, if I try to add this to the list, okay, QuickFile is going to give me this little error, and it's going to tell me that I have only 25 characters to use, and it tells me that I entered in 29. So I would have to abbreviate or change this, okay, and I'm simply going to delete it. All right. Next, we have our line of business, okay, and in our line of business, you should have a complete list exactly like what I see here on my screen. Okay. Now, the line of business is extremely important to the functionality of QuickFile. It is not so much this over here as this accord description that's listed over here. These accord descriptions have functionality attached to them. All right. What we tell everybody is to leave this list exactly the way it is. Do not change this list. The reason we don't want to change this list is because it's extremely important to different functionality. For example, some accord forms are attached to this. Also, any of our policy detail screens, we have several policy detail screens for you to use for auto, commercial auto, homeowners, and general liability. If you do not have these matching accord descriptions linked to the correct accord or to the correct line of business, your policy or your policy detail screens will not work. Very, very, very important that you leave these exactly the way they are. Now, If you need something in this list but you don't see it, for example, maybe I'm a health agent as well. Okay? If I need the line of business health, I can simply add it to the list just as I did right here. I can also add life insurance just as I've added it here. To do that, we simply enter in what it is that we need. Okay? Notice that there's no matching accord description. All right? We can put it in here. Now, under health, you might have, several different other types of coverages that you offer, like major medical. I don't know, major medical, supplemental disability or long-term disability, long-term care, those types of items. All right? But we want the line of business to be health. Okay? So again, remember, leave this list exactly the way it is, and the same thing goes with anything else. Like, for example, homeowners. Okay? You can see that we have homeowners listed here, but there's all types of coverages underneath homeowners. Okay? So we can go to our coverages next, and we can be a lot more specific here with the type of coverages that we offer. For example, an HO3. Maybe we want to add the HO4. Okay? So in order for us to do that, I would put in HO4. Okay? Select the line of business that I want to appear. We'll just select all, and I would add that to the list. Now, when I do that, notice the QuickFile added it to my list. So now I have the HO3 and the HO4. Okay? Very important. All right? So we can add that to our list. Now when I go to select a homeowner's policy, I can select the line of business homeowners and then the form. Okay? All right. So we can be a lot more detailed here in our lines of coverage. Same thing goes with like dwelling fire. If you wanted to, you could put the form name of that. You could put, under general liability, maybe you have specific things that you want to call general liability. You can put those coverages in here. So you can be, like I said, a lot more specific in your coverages. This is not as critical to the operation of your software as the lines of business are up here. All right? This list, we're really adamant about leaving it exactly the way it is. Okay? Next, we have our insurance companies, and you should have an entire list of insurance companies right here. Okay? If you do, then that's great. If you don't, then if you're using QuickQuote, you can import them for the rater. But by default, you should have an entire list of companies here. Now, you can narrow your list down to apply to only the companies that you actually write with, and that's fine. So, but just remember, if you delete those entries out, okay, it is permanent. All right? Now, once we have our insurance companies list the way that we need it, we can now set up our commissions. Okay? In order to do that, we need to select our insurance company, and I'm just going to select Agency Insurance Company, and I'm going to double click on their name. When I do that, okay, it's going to bring up this chart, and this is really not a good example because I've already got commissions set up for this. So let's bring up somebody that doesn't. Let's bring up ASI. I'm going to double click. Okay. When we first come into the commission screen, this is exactly how it's going to look. The line of business is going to be defaulted to auto. The coverage is going to be defaulted to all. The premium sent, okay, is going to be defaulted to net, and your new commission or your commission chart down here is going to be filled with zeros. All right? In order to set up your commission structure, you need to understand two things. One, it's based on the line of business, and then it can be based on the coverage. Okay? And then finally, the determining factor, or two of the determining factors, is how is the commission being paid to me? Do I retain the commission up front and get it net? Okay? Or do I send off the entire down payment? Okay? And when I send off the entire down payment, does the commission come to me later in one payment? All right? So you need to make sure that you understand exactly how your insurance carriers are paying you your commission. If you get a monthly statement, then it's gross. If you retain the commission up front, then it's net. Okay? Let's assume in this particular case that on my auto policies, any auto policy that I assume or that I sell, with all the coverages, I get the same dollar amount, okay, or the same percentage. All right? But this insurance company sends me a monthly statement. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to select gross, change that over, okay, and I'm going to put in my commission percentage. Now, to do that, I just highlight the zeros, put in my percentage. Let's say it's 13% on new business and renewal. So it's a level commission. I hit enter on my keyboard, and notice that it pre-fills all 8 fields. Okay, so we have the annual, the 6-month, the 3-month, and the monthly. Everything's filled in for me. So QuickFile assumes that once you select this company, this line of business, all right, no matter what policy term you select, it's going to calculate at a 13% 13% commission rate. All right. Now, I realize that there are companies out there that only write 6-month policies. That's fine. No sense in making double the work for yourself. Go ahead and enter in the commission structure once, okay, and QuickFile will calculate the commission. So there's no need to zero these out. You don't have to zero this out. You don't have to zero this out. You don't have to zero this out. You can leave it just the same, okay? So enter it in once and be done with it. Now, if this insurance company also offers, let's say, commercial auto, I can scroll down here in my line of business. Notice that I didn't hit save or anything like that. And in my commercial auto, I simply select the line of business, and QuickFile resets itself. So on this particular line of business, for this coverage, it goes back to net, which is the default. We would simply then change it to gross and enter in our percentage. Now, if they pay you the same percentage on all lines of business, that's fine. You're still going to have to set up each individual line of business in QuickFile so that it can calculate the commissions correctly. All right? Now, I realize that probably to a lot of you this sounds like a lot of work, but I will tell you this, a little bit of preparation here, getting this all set up, and having everything correct before you enter in your first policy will make things a lot easier for you in the long run. So it's important that you take a little bit of time here and get this stuff set up correctly. Okay? All right. So let's say that this insurance company doesn't pay me the same percentage. Let's say they pay me 10% on commercial auto. But if the policy renews, they're not going to pay me 10% on the renewal. They're only going to pay me 8% on my renewal. All right? And a lot of insurance companies will do that based on the different lines of business that you offer. Okay? So what I have to do is I have to change each field individually. This will only pre-fill once. Now I have to change each one. So I would go through here and I would change the annual, the semi-annual, the quarterly, and the monthly. Okay? As I do that, all those things are changed. Now QuickFile remembers that that's what it's supposed to be. So on the renewal, when you go to renew the policy in QuickFile, on this commercial auto policy, it'll tell you that it's 10% on new business and 8% on renewal, and it will calculate as such. Okay? Now, there is a good possibility that the insurance company also charges a policy fee for commercial auto. If that's the case and it's a standard policy fee, then you can enter it in here. If it is a policy fee based on premium, a percentage of the premium, then there's no way for you to track it in here, so there's no reason for you to actually enter it in. Okay? That being said, let's say it's a standard policy fee. And let's say on all new business they pay me, I have to charge $35. So I would put in the new policy fee of $35, hit enter on my keyboard. When I do that, QuickFile is going to pre-fill the new and the renewal. All right? Now, let's say that they don't charge that on renewal. So I would have to change this to 0, just like I'm doing right now. Okay? 0 and tab. All right? Now, what's going to end up happening is this little $35 is going to be placed over here in this little commission calculator. So if I click on this little calculator, it's going to tell me that the policy fee was added to the commission calculator, and I click OK. Now you can see that the policy fee is there. The reason that it lists it as 0 is because the policy fee could apply to multiple lines, and we can't display multiple lines of business here. Okay, so it's just going to show up as 0. But when you select the line of business and the insurance company, the correct policy fee will appear. Okay? But for display purposes, it'll just show 0. Now, the commission calculator is also great for putting in standard fees. If you know any standard fees that you might have in your state, or with with companies that you're doing business with, then you might want to enter them in here. Again, if they're standard fees. If they are not standard fees, then you're going to want to list them on the fly, and in tomorrow's training session we'll show you how to enter that stuff in on the fly. Okay? That being said, let's go ahead and click OK. Now, one last thing that I want to show you. Okay, let's say that we sell homeowners with this client, or with this company too. So we're going to scroll down here to homeowners. Notice that it resets back to 0. When it resets back to 0, or resets back to its defaults, we're going to say gross. But let's say on this one, for homeowners for this company, let's say they pay me differently on an HO3 than they do an HO4. So what I need to do is, instead of selecting all, I select the coverage. Okay, I've selected gross. Let's say they give me 12% on the HO3, level commission. And on my HO4, watch what happens. When I select the HO4, QuickFile resets back to my defaults. Okay, and let's say that they pay me 10 on this. I hit enter, fills it in. Okay, so now if I go back to the HO3, see I've got 12, and on the HO4 I've got 10. Okay, the trick to making sure that this works properly is that you do not set up a commission structure for all. All should always be 0. Okay, so the trick to making this work is to set up the specific coverages with their specific percentages. All right. Okay, once we're done, we simply click OK, and that information is saved. So if I open it back up again, you'll notice that my gross, my commission is set up. Okay, if I scroll down to my commercial auto, that's set up just exactly the way I left it. And if we scroll down to my homeowners, that's set up just the way I left it, because I would have to then filter out by HO3 and HO4. Okay? All right, so we've got everything set up on our commissions. You'll do this for each insurance company that you have listed here, and make sure that you get that set up. If you're not going to use QuickFile to track commissions, that's fine. You don't have to set up the commission structure. It's not required. Okay? Let's move next to our financing. And in our financing options, what we have here is we have, you should have a list that says direct bill, paid in full, and premium finance. Okay? If by chance you do any agency bill, you need to enter in agency bill. Okay? By entering an agency bill, that will give you another option to choose from. Okay? Now, please keep in mind that by selecting the financing options, this is really just a notation as to how the client is paying their premium. Okay? And also, one other note on the premium finance, if you want to replace premium finance with the actual finance company's name, that's fine. You can do that. Okay? It doesn't have to say premium finance. It could actually say the finance company's name. Okay. Next, we have our optional coverage and additional coverage. The optional coverage is just a list of items here, things that you might offer in your office, such as AAA, maybe a motor club or Nation Safe drivers. Okay. Next, we have our billing descriptions. Your billing description list should look something like this. Okay. If it doesn't look like this, simply go up to the top, click on Reset List. Okay. It's going to ask me if I'm sure. I simply say yes to both questions and reset it with common items. This is another place where in the program where we say do not change this list. Do not edit this list. Do not touch this list. The reason being is because we have specific things hard-coded into the system, and if you want the billing entries to move properly through QuickFile, you'll using our default list is the best way to go. Okay? All right. So again, make sure that you don't remove anything from this list. You can add to it, and that's fine. If you want to add a couple of items, that's fine. But just keep in mind that when you add those items, it's merely as a notation, and they may not move through the system exactly the way you want them to. Okay. Next, we have additional premium reasons for AP letters. Okay. And here, we can list reasons why somebody might have additional premium on their policy. AP stands for additional premium. Okay? It does not stand for accounts payable. All right? Very important. It stands for additional premium, not accounts payable. That being said, okay, here are some reasons why somebody might have additional premium on their policy. And this just allows you to notify your client when there is additional premium. We have an actual letter template that would actually, there's a symbol in there that says AP reason, and it would actually pull from here, and you can insert that into your letter. All right? Not many people use this function, but we still have it in here. Okay? All right, so that concludes our pop-up boxes. Again, just a reminder, if you have any questions on anything that I discussed, please feel free to ask Amy. She is monitoring those questions. Next, let's move to our defaults. And in our default section, you can notice that we have subtabs. Okay? Entry, letters, client screen, policy screen, drive locations, and backup options. All right? We're going to move through this rather quickly. In our entry screen, we're just defaulting certain items to show up. Now, when you first set up QuickFile, you'll notice that the area code there might be an area code listed here. You can erase that, okay, and put in your own area code if that's where you do business at. If you're in a metropolitan area and you do business in several area codes, you may want to leave this blank. Leave your default language set to English. We'll show you tomorrow why. Actually, throughout the training session, we'll show you why you want to leave that set to English. The policy period, choose your most common policy period. Okay, semi-annual, quarterly, monthly, bi-monthly, okay, whatever that might be, or annual. So what's the most common policy period? You will have to put something here. Okay, QuickFile does require something to be here. Now, in our utilities, remember that I changed the address in my default agency. Okay, when you first open this up, it'll be defaulted to 1 South Main Street or something like that, or you know. So what you're going to want to do is you want to click on the drop-down menu and change your default here, okay? Because QuickFile didn't change it for you automatically. So you have to come back in here and change that default. Once you change that default, the next time that you enter in a client or a policy, it'll use that as the default. Agent CSR, if you're the only writing agent in your office, you can go ahead and put yourself in as the agent or the default agent. Okay, just keep in mind that you'll be able to select from your drop-down menu who's the actual agent on the policy. It is not required that you put a default agent here, okay, so you don't have to do that. And then same thing goes with city, state, and zip. All right. Okay, moving along, on our Accord forms, you do have the ability to scan your signature in and save it to QuickFile. Okay, once you save it into QuickFile, you can actually use that signature, that scanned signature on Accord forms. Okay, when we open this up, you'll notice that I have a couple of scanned items in here already. To scan your signature into QuickFile, you need to follow a couple of steps first. On a blank sheet of paper, in the upper left-hand corner of the piece of paper, write your name a little larger than you normally would. Okay, but you need to sign in on the upper left-hand corner. That way, when you scan it in, it's focusing on that, and you can edit it a lot better in Paint. Okay, when you scan your signature into QuickFile into your computer, make sure you save the signature as a bitmap file, okay, or a BMP file. Also, there's no need to scan it in its highest resolution. If you use a minimum resolution, it'll be just fine. That's what I used here. I didn't use a super high resolution. The reason that we ask you to scan in or sign your name a little larger than you normally would is so that it actually shows up on the actual Accord form itself when you attach the signature. Okay. Once you get it scanned and saved to your desktop or someplace that you can find it, okay, you're going to edit that in a program such as Paint, okay, using Microsoft Paint, because that program works with bitmap files. Okay. Once you get it edited and sized correctly, then you can come in here and click on Add New Signature. When you click on Add New Signature, QuickFile will allow you to browse your computer for that particular file. So you would click on the Browse button, and then you would maybe go to My Documents or My Desktop, wherever it's stored, and find it. You are looking for a BMP file, okay, or a .bmp file. That's what you're looking for, okay? So we would scroll or search and go to My Pictures, okay? I can scroll down here. Here's my signature, okay? Notice the file size is only 927 kilobytes, okay? Keep that file size under a meg. Good rule of thumb. No need to store really high file sizes here, okay? So I would click on that. It finds the image path. I can give it a name. Click OK. QuickFile is going to upload that signature, and there it is. Okay. All right. If I needed to remove a signature, I can just click on Delete Signatures. It's going to ask me if I'm sure. I simply say yes, and now I've removed the signature. Okay. All right. So that's how you set up a signature. Over to the right, we have our email options, and in our email options, when you first open this up, this will be blank. Okay. This box and this box will be unchecked, and these items here will be blank. What you're going to want to do is if you use Microsoft Outlook as your email, okay, you can just simply check this box off here that says Use Print Email Fax and use Microsoft Outlook for emailing. Okay. Once you do that, you're all set up. Okay. There's no need to go any further. For those of you who have offices with multiple computers, multiple Outlook addresses, and everything like that, you're going to need to set up the Outlook locally on each computer. Okay, you're going to need to go into QuickFile on each computer, check the box that says Use Print Email Fax, and then check the box that says Use Microsoft Outlook for emailing. We use Outlook because it's local. All right, if you're going to try and use Yahoo or Gmail or MSN, you might as well just save yourself some time right now and not try and use those, because you cannot get past the layered securities that those websites have. Okay, a web-based mail is not going to work very well here with QuickFile. Okay, even if you have all of the information, we simply can't get past their layered security. Okay, so that being said, best to set up Outlook or Outlook Express. If you're going to use Outlook Express, you need to uncheck this box and you need to enter in the exact same information that you have in your Outlook Express into QuickFile. As long as you enter it in the same information, you're going to be able to use Outlook Express as your email. Or for those of you who are using Windows Vista, it's Windows Mail. All right. We do give you the ability to add a text signature at the very bottom of your emails. Okay. You cannot put any pictures or attach any files here. Okay, so if you have a logo or an agency logo, you're not going to be able to use it here like you would in Word or in Outlook, okay, or in other email programs. All right, just simply does not have the capability of attaching any photos here. Okay. All right, so we would just, again, if we're using Microsoft Outlook, check this box off, click OK, and our email is ready to go. Okay. Over here on the left-hand side, we have a series of yes/no questions. Make sure that all these boxes are checked. Okay. The reason being is because you want to know which policy it is that you're attaching any image to. Okay. So QuickFile is going to ask you which policy does this image go to. Next, we have don't send AP to billing. AP stands for additional premium. It does not stand for accounts payable. It stands for additional premium. Okay. I'm going to harp on that until I'm done. But it does not stand for accounts payable. What we don't want to do is we don't want to send any additional premium to our billing screens, because that'll just mess up our billing. Okay? Very important that we just leave that alone. Okay? The only time that you would ever create a bill for additional premium is if you're doing agency bill. Next, we have show tip of the day at startup. I recommend that you guys, for brand new users, that you go through the tips for the first 35 to 40 days. The reason being is because there's a lot of helpful hints in there, a lot of good ideas and things like that, shortcuts to the program. Once you're done with the tips of the day, if you don't want to see those again, there's a little box up there, there's a little message that says don't show this tip again, and you can check that and they won't appear anymore when you open up QuickFile. Okay? Over here on the right-hand side, we have this Data Wizard. It says use Data Wizard when adding new Accord forms. This box is checked by default. We don't do any training on the default or on the Data Wizard because it's really pretty self-explanatory. Okay. If you have QuickFile open and this box right here is not checked and grayed out, you need to go out to our website and register your software, okay, or activate your software. So you need to make sure that you've got that all activated, okay. Once you activate the software or register the software, this box will be checked and grayed out. Next we have our letters screen. Okay, we're going to move tabs. And in the letters screen we have simply default letters that are already set up for you. For example, a down payment receipt. The down payment receipt is simply a generic receipt that we already have designed in QuickFile for you and set up as your default. In Thursday's training session, we'll show you how to edit your letters and edit receipts so that if you decide you don't like the way the letter or the receipt is laid out, you can rearrange it. Same thing goes with the payment receipt. Again, we can edit that or change it to suit your agency's needs. Okay, and we'll show you how you can do that. QuickFile does have the capability of having an agency bill receipt. So if you do any agency billing, you can list that here. We just do not have an agency bill receipt built into QuickFile. Next we have our last receipt number. Okay, QuickFile will start numbering receipts as you print them out. You can start with whatever number you want to, or if you have a receipt book and you want to use the last number of that receipt book and have QuickFile start numbering your receipts from there, feel free to do so. Okay. Down here we have this if-then statement for our additional premium. Basically what this tells me is that if the additional premium is more than $100, okay, then it's going to be required that we use the AP financed receipt or letter, okay, and we're going to require them to insert 10% down when they return that back to us, okay, the invoice. All right. If it's less than $100, we're just going to use the AP bill, okay. That'll just allow us to bill for that. Now, again, if you're not going to use the additional premium, okay, AP, additional premium, remember that, then there's no need to set this up. Down here we have our letter defaults. The font size for our letterhead I have set to 12. By default it's set to 10, which is rather small, okay, but you can set it to 10, 11, 12, or 14. That's just the size of the font. The same thing goes with the addressee, and we can set it to 10, 11, 12, or 14 depending on what we want. Okay? And I'll show you where the default letterhead is here in just a minute. We also have today's date on letter. Okay? You can display the date on the left or the right. Okay? If you do that, then the date's going to print out 12/2/2008. Okay? However, if you choose detailed, it will print out the entire date, December 2nd, 2008. Okay? So a lot of people like to use detailed. Days to reply, you have the ability of telling somebody how long they have to reply to a letter or a notice that you sent them. Okay? For example, if you needed additional information from them and you sent out a letter that said, I require a copy of your driver's license and your Social Security card. Okay? Please reply back to this office within 10 days. All right. What QuickFile will do is then it will take and calculate that 10 days from today, and it'll say, please come to stop by my office by December 12th. Okay. So that's what that will do. We want to have you leave the box that says use Microsoft Word as word processor unchecked. Okay. Down here at the very bottom we have a couple of buttons. Select default invoice. Okay, we have 4 invoices for you to choose from. Number 4 is already selected for you as the default invoice. We use this as a default invoice simply because it's fillable and there's a lot of functionality attached to it. Okay, the ability to invoice a mortgage company or remit back to an insurance company or things of that nature, and we'll show you that tomorrow. Okay, all right. These others are fillable here. These other 2 are fillable here. They're just not as detailed as this one is. Okay, and this is just a really plain invoice. So using number 4 is usually the best bet. We simply save that. Next we have select logo for letterhead. Your logo can be attached to QuickFile. Okay. That being said, as you can see, I have a QuickQuote logo up here. All right. The logo can be no larger than 7 inches wide by 1 inch high, and it must be saved in the file format of a bitmap file. Okay, so you got to use a bitmap. All right. So again, we're going to use something like Microsoft Paint to edit it. Okay. If you've had your logo professionally designed by somebody, and you've got it electronically stored on your computer, then feel free to, I would imagine that if that person saved that as a JPEG image or something like that, they'd be more than happy to save it as a bitmap file as well. Okay. All right. Again, make sure that the logo is no more than 7 inches wide by 1 inch high. Okay. All right. Same thing with the footer. You can put your logo down at the bottom on your footer. So I move this down here. Okay. But the logo can be no larger than 7 inches wide by 1 inch high. Okay. Whoops. Sorry. Grab the wrong one. 7 inches wide by 0.6 inches high on the footer. Okay, so you want to make sure that that's correct. Okay. If you don't want to use the actual logo itself and you want to place text down there, you can check this box down here and you can say thank you for your business, or you can put your street address down there. Just keep in mind that when you enter any information in there, it will be centered across the bottom. Okay. If you're going to attach your actual footer, then you need to select your logo and adjust the size. Okay. All right. Next we have our client screen. There's a series of yes/no questions here. The series of yes/no questions, you should have number 2, 3, and 7 checked. Okay. You want to leave the rest of these unchecked. One of them is really an option. That's completely and totally up to you. But the first one, client screen total, includes expired policies. On the client screen total, you always want to see what's active. Okay, so you want to leave this box unchecked. Okay. Number 2 and number 3 show total on client screen and show AR balance on client screen. AR balance in this case does stand for accounts receivable. So if the client owes you any money, you'll see that on their client screen in red. Okay. Or conversely, if you owe them any money. Okay. But if they owe you any money, you're going to see it. Allow user to add new items to pop-up boxes and client and policy screens. Now, guys, just a few minutes ago I got done harping about adding new items to your pop-up boxes. Okay, I got done talking about the lines of business and how important it is to leave the lines of business exactly the way it is. Okay, because your lines of business, your insurance companies, all those items you've just started, entering up commission structures and placing everything and putting everything the way it's supposed to be in QuickFile. If you allow a user to add anything they want to arbitrarily to those items in the pop-up boxes, guess what? Your commissions are not going to calculate. Okay, so for example, let's say we have in our office, we have an agent that always refers to auto policies as personal auto. Okay, so you have this box checked, and what happens is when they go to enter in the line of business, okay, they type in personal auto. Okay, when they type in personal auto, QuickFile is going to recognize that and save that to the line of business. Now you're trying to track commissions, and you've just set up your commission structure to look for auto. Because they entered in personal auto, it's not going to calculate the commissions. Okay? Not to mention that I've seen, everything, we get into a hurry, we misspell things, we hit the wrong key, hit enter, and next thing you know, it's all saved into the database. Once it's saved, there's no way to get it out because we've already got it in there, okay? And we have no way of tracking the commissions on those policies, okay? Because it is a database, it is looking for specific matches so that it can do exactly what it's supposed to do. So make sure you leave this box unchecked. Add new clients as prospects. Okay, this is a personal choice. If that's your policy, that's your procedure, that all new clients go in as a prospect first, fine. Just make sure that you make them an active client. Okay, we don't want to disable the message after entering duplicate client based on phone or last name. For example, let's say that one day you're talking to the wife and the next day you're talking to the husband. Okay, if that's the case, and one CSR enters in the client, the wife, and you go to enter in the husband and the last name and the phone number match, QuickFile is going to recognize that and display a message and say, you already have a client that matches this criteria. Are you sure you want to proceed? And what will end up happening is QuickFile will then say, you know, it'll take you to the correct client. Okay. Down here at the very bottom, we have Add New Client As, personal or commercial. What do you do most in your office? Do you do more personal lines or do you do more commercial lines? This is, again, a choice. Okay? If you write a ton of commercial and that's all you really specialize in, then set that as your default. But if it's a 50-50 split, you'll be able to change it on the fly, and we'll show you how tomorrow. Okay? You do have the ability to number your clients. You can set a client numbering system here. As you can see, I've got one set up for every new client that I add. It'll put QQ-17-2008. Okay? So this is my next number. When I go to enter in a new client, the next number will be 17, and this will be displayed on their file number. Okay? All right. Again, if you want to number them, this is an option. If you don't want to number them, that's fine. You don't have to number them. It's not required. Okay? Some management systems will actually force you to do that. Next, we have our policy screen. Okay? And in our policy screen, we have the a series of yes/no questions. All right? Number one, this is a choice. Disable message after selecting policy line of business. These are, again, just a series of tips. So when you get comfortable with the system, you may want to uncheck this box or, you know, disable the message. Leave this box unchecked where it says ask to create debit to company after entering in premium. You wouldn't want to do this unless you're really doing agency billing or something like that. Jump to premium issued after entering policy number. This is really a good idea. For example, if you're doing a lot of manual work in QuickFile, you're entering in policies and then you're entering in premium. Okay? When you go to enter in the issued premium in QuickFile, it's going to jump you to the policy number. If you go to enter in the policy number, it will jump you over to the issued premium field to make sure that you enter in that information. Very important that you do so. Okay? Next, we have show commissions on policy screen. Again, very important that you show the commissions so that you can see exactly what your agency is earning. Okay? If you don't want anybody to see that, that's fine. You can uncheck this box and it won't be displayed. Okay? All right. Next, we have the MVR cost. This is the amount that the MVR costs the agency. You can put your dollar amount in here, but that's the only place that it appears. Okay? And then we have set binder number. Okay, and in Florida, if you're a Florida client, you are required to keep a binder book. Make sure that you keep that binder book and that number correct. And you also, if you're going to use this, you also need to make sure that the binder book and this number match. All right, very important that you make sure that they match correctly. Okay. All right. Down here at the very bottom, we have some items for our commissions calculated on for our producers. Okay. This will become more apparently clear when we're actually talking about the producers later on in our presentation in tomorrow's training session, and when we talk about reconciling commissions. Okay. That being said, whatever you set up here as a default is how the commission is going to calculate in QuickFile. Manual entry means that you're going to manually enter the amount that the commission is calculated on. 100% means it's going to use 100% of the agency's commission, okay, to then calculate the commission for the producers. Split evenly means that it's going to split the producer commission amongst it's going to split the agency's commissions equally amongst the producers so that you can then calculate the commissions. Okay? All right. Next and last but not least in this section, we have drive locations and backup options. Okay? The drive locations and backup options, this should be pointing to your main computer. Okay? Whatever that main computer is in your office, whether it be a server or a computer that's acting as a server, this is where the location of your data files should be at. Okay? You should have QuickFile installed on every machine in your office, including your server if you're going to share the data. Okay? You want to make sure that you're sharing data on everybody's computer in the office. If you have any problems mapping those drives or mapping QuickFile, okay, you need to call product support. Next, we have our backup options. Okay, you need to back up to drive location wherever that drive location is. We recommend that you back up to something removable like a CD, or if you have a really large database, a CD or a DVD or a pen drive or something like that. Okay, so that's your defaults. Next we have our passwords. Now it looks like we got a lot to go, but we really don't. These last few tabs aren't going to take very long. Okay, now we have our defaults, and in our passwords, okay, you can limit access to the QuickFile program. I would suggest that you set up a utilities password so that nobody can get into the utilities to change them around once you have them set up, so they can't get in and modify them, because anybody can modify utilities right now. Okay, so if you want to limit that access, go ahead and set up a password here. I may also suggest that you set up a password if they go to delete a client or a policy. Okay, because remember, anytime you delete anything in QuickFile, it is permanent. Okay, again, these are completely and totally up to you. If you want to allow everybody to have full access to the system, that's fine. Next, we have client maintenance. And our client maintenance feature allows us to go through and transfer all of our expired clients from active to inactive in a batch. What will end up happening is over time your database is going to build up clients that no longer have active policies with you. Okay? If they have one active policy with you, they won't show up on the list of people to be expired. But if they have no active policies with you, they are going to show up as needing to be transferred. So let me give you a demonstration of this. I'm looking by cancellation date or effective or expiration date. I'm just going to put in a date range here. Okay. And I want to show a list of clients who will be transferred. Now QuickFile brought up 6 clients that no longer have any active policies with me. All right. What that means to me is that all these clients are truly inactive. That being said, I would then have to change this over to, I would then have to make these guys inactive. I can do that in the batch. Now, let's say that I'm looking at this list, and this list just, there are people on here that actually did renew. What that might mean is I just didn't renew them in the system so that they're showing as active clients. So I could go back through and double check this list and make sure it's accurate. All right? Again, this is not a feature that you're going to use right off the bat, but it will be something that you'll use maybe in the future. If you want to delete all of your expired clients or your inactive clients, you can do that, but remember, you'll permanently get rid of them. Okay? They're going to be gone forever. You can also delete prospects as well. Okay? All right. Next, we have our agency information. This is where we get your default letterhead. Okay? And we use the first 5 lines that you see here, and that's what's listed on your letterhead. Okay? The rest of this information is for us. Okay? All right. And then next we have our system information. This is where we come to back up our data. And you want to back up your data once a week. Okay? Once you get your backup files, you're going to need to format a CD using a third-party software such as Roxio. Okay? Once you get that formatted, or that CD formatted, then you can back up your files. Okay? You back it up to something removable and store it somewhere safe. Okay? If you ever need to restore from your backup, your system crashed or something like that, you can restore your files from your backup. Okay? We also have this handy little tool here which will clear out all reminder dates prior to today's dates. Reminders have a tendency to get, to not get dismissed. And tomorrow we'll show you how to set a reminder and dismiss a reminder. Okay? But occasionally we get into a hurry and we take care of something. We take care of a memo reminder, but we don't dismiss it. Okay? That being said, we would want to come in here, or we could come in here and remove all reminders prior to today's date. Okay? We do have a repair code in here. These repair codes, you will only enter in any repair codes if you're directed by our product support department. Okay? All right, and last but not least, we have this little button here that says, this tab here that says real-time setup. If you don't see that button or you don't see that tab, don't worry, it just means that you haven't signed up for quick downloads. The very first time that you come into this tab, it's going to ask you to install some software. Please don't install that software until you're actually directed by our product support department. Okay? So you would want to click on no. But if you want more information on real-time setup or real-time inquiry, what this actually allows you to do is it actually allows you to go directly from QuickFile into a client's policy or billing information or endorsement information without having to go out to the internet and do it. Okay? So it'll take you directly from QuickFile to that client's policy or billing information right from within the QuickFile software. Okay? And to get more information on that, you can visit our website, quickfile.net, and if you guys give me just a minute, I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Okay, so let me bring that up on my screen. Okay. When we bring it up on my screen, I am at quickfile.net. You can also go to quickquote.net or quickquote.com or qqonline.com, I'm sorry, qqonline.com. You're going to go to Updates and Info. You're going to select Real-Time Inquiry. Okay. When you do that, then you're going to see this page right here. Okay. And in order to view a list of participating insurance carriers, you need to click here, and we're going to bring up this screen. And you can see we have roughly about 40 insurance carriers that participate with us. Okay? And here are the items that they allow: billing inquiries, policy inquiries, claims inquiries. Okay? Some will actually, you can jump directly from QuickFile to the company's website to make a payment. Okay? Or you can just jump to the company website. All right? So in order to sign up for this and be a part of it, you must have our QuickFile quick download program. So you want to make sure that you get signed up for that for carrier downloads. And on top of that, you must have a valid Ivans account, okay, or Ivans mailbox account. Okay. While you're at our website, feel free to browse around and check out a couple of other things. If we go back to QuickFile, you will notice that we have an entire list of newsletters here, okay, and we go through a lot of things. So if you're going to set up your downloads, it's a good idea to look at October 2007's newsletter right here where it says Quick Download Part 1. These are another source of training. Okay, all of our newsletters contain valuable information to help you use the program. So they're really training letters or training tutorials. All right, and we send those out once a month. Okay, so make sure that you take a look at our new newsletters as they come through to you. If you're an agency owner, make sure that they get forwarded on. Okay, they need to get forwarded on to the people in your office so they're actually learning how to use QuickFile. Okay, but this first training or this first newsletter right here is up to date. Quick Download Part 1. It'll give you all the information of what you need to do in order to sign up for, in order to get started with Quick Downloads. Okay. So there's a lot of valuable information in there. Also, just so you guys know, this week or next week, we will be launching a brand new website. So when you go to quickfile.net, it will redirect you to our brand new website, qqonline.com. Okay, it's going to be a brand new website filled with all kinds of great information. Okay, things have kind of been moved around, so you'll probably look for different things in different places. All right, but everything will be launched sometime this week or next. Okay, next week I believe is when we're going to launch the brand new site. Okay, so be on the lookout for that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that pretty much concludes our training session for this morning. I want to thank you all for joining us. We are going to continue to leave the questions open for another 5 minutes, and Amy will continue to monitor those. Join us tomorrow where we'll talk about the Clients Drawer and how to use the Clients Drawer and enter information into QuickFile. Okay? I want to thank everyone for joining us. Everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye now.